Hey y'all, this is Kitten. It's that's her actual name. She's a bit skittish. She's my daughter's cat. I'm cat sitting right now, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about things that what I think about Disclosure Day and the real message of Disclosure Day. What I think might be the real message of Disclosure Day, ultimately. And I've been scrolling around the internet. I've been looking at things here and there. I've been hearing a lot from various people. Uh, let's just settle on something here. Let's just look at the blackness of my computer screen, and my opaque reflection therein. Let's just focus on that hypnotic visual for now. Most of what I'm hearing about Disclosure Day online is just people, talking about how crappy it is, and I understand that. I didn't think it was that great. Um, Reminds me a lot of after I saw Eyes Wide Shut. When it first came out, and I was looking online to see people's reactions to it. Everybody was saying, "God, that movie sucked. That sucks. Why did I waste 2 hours and 15 minutes of my time, or however long the movie was, to watch that?" Believe it or not, those were overwhelmingly people's reactions to to Stanley Kubrick's swan song. His goodbye to filmmaking and his goodbye to this world. Uh, now, there that's it's sort of to be expected when something is disappointing, when something gets a lot of build up. People are reactive, and the they tend to they tend to make their disappointment a bit more global than it necessarily has any right to be, or ought to be. It would be different if it were something more low key, or if it wasn't a once great director, or a director who's talked about as being once great. I don't know what my own assessment of Spielberg would be. I do think he's made some good movies. I do think he has talent. It's a complicated legacy in many ways, as I'm sure most of you know. Most of you out there who are in the know probably know what I'm talking about when I say it's a complicated legacy. I'm not just talking about aesthetics. I'm not just talking about movie making. And really, kind of that's what brings me to what I think I'm arrested by with Disclosure Day. And by the way, watch this on 1.5 speed, and I ask for your latitude here, because I don't know. I'm coming up with what I have to say as I go. So there you go. Oh, there's a screensaver you can watch for a couple minutes before it goes blank again. All right, so the thing that sticks with me the most are two scenes that I talked about in my other video when I was walking around the neighborhood with my T-shirt over my head, both because of the heat and the humidity, and to try to get the sand gnats from buzzing into my eyes and ears. And I talked about a lot of things, a lot of different aspects of the movie. And what I eventually made reference to is something that It's a small thing, but it's significant, and I think that if Jonathan Pageau hadn't mentioned it in his review, I don't think it would have stuck with me at all. But um, but if you've seen Disclosure Day, if you've seen it, or even if you haven't seen it, the very opening scene takes place at a wrestling match. Now, I think this is significant. And the more I think about it, it just doesn't seem to me, well, whatever Spielberg's flaws are as a director or as a man, but here we're just talking about him as a director. I don't think he's, I don't, I don't think he's unintelligent. I think he knows what he's doing. And to have the movie begin with a wrestling match, when the wrestling match, with us watching, like 2 or 3 minutes of wrestlers pummel each other, like professional wrestlers. Okay, the kind of wrestling that we know is scripted, is made up. The word they came up with it is kayfabe. I'm not cool enough to know how that word was derived. I guess I could just look that up on Grok, but I haven't thought to yet. Um, but what it means is that it's scripted. It's not. The matches you see aren't actually two people wrestling. The outcome has already been decided. So uh, so we start off with seeing something that is scripted, seeing something that everybody knows is fake. I think even the people who watch it know that it's fake, but they just still get into the drama of it, which is fine. I don't think there's anything the matter with being entertained by by what's essentially a staged production, just like people would be entertained by a play or a movie, which is also staged most of the time. But this opening scene could have taken place anywhere. And the necessity was the relationship that it had to the plot was simply that it had to be in a place where there were a lot of people cheering and standing up and sitting down again, because one of the heroes, one of the guys who's one of the heroes of the movie, the bad guys have kidnapped his girlfriend, and they're communicating to him by sitting behind him and talking to him while everybody else is paying attention to what's happening in the wrestling match. So he's just pretending. He's just there pretending to be a fan. They're there pretending to be fans, but they're really, communicating something to him about, give us the whatever, and we'll let your girlfriend go, or come with us, do this, do that for us, and we'll let your girlfriend go. So this could have been, Spielberg could have chosen to have this be set at a football game, at a baseball game, basketball game, any hockey, anything, any kind of sport. Instead, he has it set at a wrestling match, which is something that is staged, that is made to look real and to make us. I don't know if anybody really actually thinks that it's real anymore, but that's the idea, that you suspend disbelief and you just believe what you're seeing, and believe that it's true, believe that it's really happening, believe that it's not just something that's been scripted or made up beforehand, that it's not a spontaneous contest. Okay. and also it's brutal. I mean, maybe that's a part of it also, because the wrestlers, professional wrestlers, really do hurt themselves, and the stunts that they do are often extreme. They lead to debilitating injuries. So it's fake, but it's also brutal. Interesting. So Spielberg again could have opened the movie in any way imaginable, but he chose to open it like that. All right, why? The question is why. Now Pajot makes reference to this scene, but he doesn't say anything about it. He doesn't say anything about how it relates to the movie itself or what's being said in the movie itself. But what he talks about in his review, and what a lot of other people have talked about, is that when the disclosure finally happens in Disclosure Day, that it's not. It's kind of like watching professional wrestling. It's all we're seeing all of these scenes, all this footage of aliens, alien craft, and this, that, the other thing, and they actually wheel out an actual alien. So they actually go that far, and a lot of what is seen in this footage is brutal. They see dead alien corpses, aliens being tortured or questioned, and being subjected to what looks like torture from humans, and other things that are brutal, and so forth. But what was pointed out by has been pointed out by many critics is many people that I've seen online, specifically on YouTube, is that this stuff that they show doesn't really seem that believable. It's we're all the world is watching, and they're watching TV news, which is that's so 30 years ago. I mean, nobody watches TV news anymore. Nobody except old people. Most people who are younger than 75 get their news, if they're looking for news, they get it from somewhere besides the television, besides the networks, besides news channels. It just doesn't. It's just not. It's just not a thing. We don't live in the kind of world anymore where all the world is watching when Walter Cronkite, tells us this or that about the Vietnam War, about JFK getting shot. And I think a lot of the reviewers were saying, "Oh, this is Spielberg is just revealing, he's such a boomer. He just lives in the past where television was so significant, and it's just not anymore." So this whole scene where all the world is watching this footage of aliens on the TV news, and it's supposed to be really convincing. It's supposed to be really. It's supposed to change our minds. Supposed to shift our paradigm, our entire paradigm of how we see the world and the universe and God and what have you. It's supposed to be this awe-inspiring moment, but it really falls flat. And I'm wondering if that's the point. I'm wondering if Spielberg is esoterically, if you will, this would be the esoteric reading of this movie. if esoterically he's saying that this is all fake, but it just looks like he's just out of touch, um, and you know, and that he's portraying this as something that's real and that's supposed to be real and convincing, whereas intelligent and discerning moviegoers won't be impressed by that, by the kind of display that's put on, you know, because they show us footage. I mean, we've all seen UFO footage of the Tic Tac and the, I don't know, this, that, and the other thing, and we've seen. I talked about Bigfoot, you know, Bigfoot striding through the forest, or the Loch Ness monster, or you know, it's not like even taking out AI, even if we weren't to consider the whole factor of AI, living in the age of AI, which, you know, gives it a whole other dimension of you know, dubiousness. Even taking that out, it's not like these images or all of this footage is convincing at all. You know, it could easily be done with special effects. And as far as the actual alien who gets wheeled in to the studio, you know, he might not be real either. Like that might be special effects, for all we know. Now, this also relates back, I think, to another scene that Pajot. I have Pajot to thank for referring me to this, because I would usually be more sensitive, I think, to this kind of thing, because whenever you know, I'm not claiming I'm some wonderful guy, but I have, whenever children are injured or hurt or put through something terrible, it's very difficult for me to watch. It's just a sensitivity that I've developed, and what we have in the movie, what gets very soft soul, what gets soft pedaled in the movie, is the fact that the two alien experiencers in the movie both have essentially alien abduction stories. They were both lured away by aliens who did something to them, something invasive, and they don't want to remember what happened to them. The whole notion of going back and reliving that is something that they do not want to do. It's an extremely painful idea to them, but they are forced to do so, or I guess they're not necessarily forced to do so, but they're put in a position where it's expected of them to essentially regress back to what they were like as children when they were lured away by aliens. And what we see with these aliens is that they appear as woodland creatures to them, and so the woodland creatures, lure them out of their bedrooms. They walk through the forest to a house that looks like Hansel and Gretel's house. It's said to be, that's Hansel and Gretel's house. So that's the visual illusion. Now, Hansel and Gretel were traumatized. They were almost eaten by the witch at the Hansel and Gretel house, weren't they? I mean, that's that seems like kind of a clue as to what's really going on, what's really happening to these people, to these two characters, what really happened to these two characters when they were children. And so we actually see them go back, and they're not. We don't see them get strapped down to anything. It's nothing quite so blatant as that, but we see them laid on a platform, and then some alien fingers come out and caress their faces, and then some machine comes down and like shoots something into their eyes, and it's not an anal probe. It's not sexual abuse, but it's something invasive. So children are being lured away by these aliens, by these beings, whatever they are, whatever their identity is, or wherever they come from. And by the way, we're never those for those who are interested, for whatever it's worth, there's we don't ever hear anything about where these creatures come from. For those of you who don't believe in other planets and think that aliens are demons, like I talked about the other day, or that they're extra dimensional beings, the movie doesn't necessarily it's open to that interpretation, because we don't see we don't see them on an alien planet. We don't see them flying in space to Earth. We see them flying around in the sky and crashing, but we don't know exactly where they're from. So, but what we do see is these two characters who are now grown people, forced to relive a traumatizing event earlier in their lives, when they were subjected to some kind of invasive treatment, when they were abducted by these by these beings, whoever they are. Call them aliens, call them demons. Although the movie does try to sell the idea that they're nice, that they're good. It's kind of hard to square that assessment, and that they're all about empathy. Well, it's kind of hard to square empathy with what we see them doing, because what we see them doing in these scenes is using illusions to get these children, to get these innocents to go and be subjected to some kind of invasive treatment at their hands. I mean, what the hell's going on? What's going on with all that? And it's portrayed as like they have to relive this moment, and then they can proceed to with their roles, because they've been groomed for this. I mean, I don't think the word "groom" is ever used, but that's basically the way it develops. The aliens groomed them. The aliens imbued them with this ability, like they each have this sensitivity that will enable them in the future to help bring disclosure to the human race. And yet they do it in this way that seems to mimic child abduction and child rape or invasive treatment of some kind. And I couldn't help but flash back to season 5 of Stranger Things. Yeah, I'm going back there. uh, with what was called Conformity Gate. This whole idea after season 5 ended, and a lot of the fans of Stranger Things were like, "What? What was that? That didn't make any sense." That was supposed to, but it was a happy ending, but it didn't. There was something that felt off about it, and then they were going through and saying, "I can't remember. It's been so long. Um, it's been several months now since I thought about it." But I was really fascinated by what was called Conformity Gate at the time. And the idea of Conformity Gate was that what in the that the happy ending was an illusion, that Vecna, this evil being who likes to abduct children uh, and hold them in his thrall, and stick a phallus-shaped object into their mouths and pump them full of something. You know, the invasiveness, the obvious metaphor of it's not even much of a metaphor. The obvious violation, the image of these children, strapped down with this uh, long appendage sticking into their mouths, pumping things into them. I mean, that's a lot of people pointed out at the time. That's pretty. It's pretty hard to avoid the ramifications there. So so the parallel that I'm drawing here is, first of all, Spielberg esoterically is saying that what's going on isn't really true. That what we're seeing is actually an illusion. That the happy stuff is an illusion. That the the feel good stuff, the stuff that seems to harken back to the good old boomer days of Walter Cronkite on the television news, uh, and everybody being glued to their TV sets and watching TV news and trusting it, and trusting these images, because how could they make something like that up? Whereas in 2026, I mean, nobody's going to see these images and think. I mean, some people will believe, and others will say, "Come on, this is bullshit." Um, so the parallel that I'm drawing here is, in both of these cases, we have high-level abuse taking place by some entity or some race of beings. We see this in season 5 of Stranger Things with Vecna, and we see it in Disclosure Day with the beings that we are told are aliens. And in both season 5 of Stranger Things and in Disclosure Day, I'm still convinced there are these Easter eggs. You call them that if you want. There are these clues that were given that what we're seeing isn't really real. In Stranger Things, the happy ending isn't really real. Vecna actually won. He won, and he shut everybody into his own reality and made them think that they had defeated him. This was again something that a lot of people were saying, and they were pointing out things that it wasn't just I mean, they had textual evidence. They were pointing out things that were actually in that series, in season 5 of that series, and that never really got resolved because or it just kind of got forgotten about, or the Conformity Gate people were just sort of, because most of the Conformity Gate people thought, well, we're connecting this with. We're saying, well, we're going to see another episode soon. We're going to find out the Duffer Brothers will reveal themselves to us And then the only thing they got was this documentary that made the Duffer Brothers look like complete doofuses. The documentary that they showed of season 5 just made us think, these guys don't look like they even know what they're doing. They're making it up as they go, you know. But what if that was just part of the deception? I'm just saying, what if, right? I think there are strong reasons to doubt the happy ending of season 5 of Stranger Things. Now, it could just be that it was crappily made, and you know that it's giving them too much. It's giving the Duffer Brothers too much credit to say there's this sinister secret, which is that, you know, the happy ending isn't real. It's all an illusion. And you could say the same about Disclosure Day. You could say that Spielberg is just, you know, he's a doddering old doofus, you know, pushing 80. He's out of touch. He doesn't really know that he doesn't understand that having everybody watch scenes on you know, grainy scenes of supposed aliens on television isn't going to rivet the world's attention like it would in, you know, 1969 or whatever. Or you could say that Spielberg knows what he's doing. I'm inclined to think he knows what he's doing. All right. I'm inclined to think that opening scene at the wrestling match is there for a reason. And that it's sort of like, those who have eyes to see, let them see it. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear it. It's you know, I guess that's how it goes with all esoteric readings of things. You know, all kind of esoteric interpretations. That there's one interpretation for the masses, the vulgar masses who don't have the sophistication to really dig deep and see what's actually going on. And then there's another layer that reveals what the actual meaning of it all is. And the actual if I'm correct, then what Stranger Things is saying and what Disclosure Day is saying esoterically is that the happy ending is not real, that the disclosure is that the disclosure that we're seeing is fake, and the reality is that these beings are evil and abusive, and now they're taking over. I don't know, something like that. Food for thought, maybe. I don't know. Tell me what y'all think.